2, right hand. Right, again. Good job, buddy.
Yo, what's up? This is episode number 14 of my poker vlog. Just kidding. I'm trying some new cardio workouts recently, and I met up with my sensei. I'll put his Instagram link down in the description below so you can check him out. He's won some national and world titles. Super cool guy, but yeah, I thought I'd throw that in there so you guys can see a little bit more about what I do. Do that like twice a week in the morning, super fun. This episode is a 1-3 session at Agua Caliente in Rancho Mirage, California, about an hour and a half south of Los Angeles area. I've been playing there a bunch recently. If you've been watching my videos, this isn't something new to you guys. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video to see if I ended up booking a profit. If I did, just like the video, comment below, and you have to be a subscriber with the notifications turned on, and I'll pick a couple people to send some money out to. That's if I win. Also, one other piece of business before I get into some hands. I'm going home to Chicago over Christmas and New Year's, so that means I'll be playing in the Rockford charitable games and the Chicago charitable games. If you watch Andrew Nemi, Brad Owen, Johnny Vibes, Jamin Burton, they've all played in these games. You can check out their Chicago poker vlogs. Super fun games, and if any of you are from the Chicago area, let's get a session in at some of those games. Yeah, I'm really excited to play in Chicago. I love doing it every time I come back in July and December. So yeah, gonna be playing there at least 5 or 6 times over the Christmas and New Year break. Without further ado, you guys are here for my boxing vlog that has now turned into a poker vlog, so let's just jump into a couple hands here. I got a bunch of them for you this time, so it's going to be a fun episode. We're starting off here with $300 in our stack, as we usually do, with the maximum buy-in here at the 1-3 game. We're in the small blind, and we look down at ace-10 of clubs. We got a late middle position raise to $12. The button puts in the call, and then I just complete from the small blind here. We could be 3-betting a hand as strong as ace-10 of clubs, but occasionally when it's not too multi-weighed, I'll just be putting in the call here for deception and to balance my range. The big blind also puts in the call here, so we're actually going to be going 4 ways to the flop, which comes 8-9 ace with 1 club. So we flop top pair in a backdoor club draw, also a backdoor straight draw with our 10. Checks to the late middle position player, and he bets $8 into 48 here, which is really weird. I raise him up now to $32 here. I think this is the right play because we have a strong ace. We have a lot of backdoor draws as well in case he has a better ace than us. But I really don't see a better ace putting in an $8 bet into 48 here. With 4 players and a lot of draws out there, I think that he'd be betting a little bit closer to 50 to 60% of the pot, not 8 into 48. So I raise him up to $32 here, and it folds back around to him. I anticipate that he's either going to fold or just call here. I never expect him to be putting in a re-raise here, but actually that is indeed what he does here. He raises it up now to $88, and I snap fold. This is not a situation that I want to be getting more money in with here. This is not a bluff. Like, people don't do bluffs like this. He's a pretty straightforward player here. A couple orbits, I later asked him what he had, and he said he had big slick. Ace King, so he played that really interesting from pre-flop to the flop, and then deciding to go for the raise on the flop. I guess that makes sense. The raise makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the $8 bet. But either way, he won the hand, so nice hand, sir, and we're going to go on to the next hand. With $230 now in our stack, we look down to pocket 9s from the under the gun position. I raise it up to $12. The +1 now 3-bets me to $36. Folds around to me, and I'm going to be putting in the call here all day. I'm not going to be raising, not folding. It's too weak. So I put in the call here, and we're going heads up to the flop with $72 in the pot, which comes Jack 8-7. So we flop second pair and a gutter. Pretty decent flop here. I check to him, and he bets huge compared to the size of the pot here. He bets 60 into 70. I don't know. He's the under the gun +1 position here when he raises pre-flop. And when we raise under the gun, that's a really strong bet. So that makes his re-raise a lot stronger. So what I'm saying here is I put in the fold. I know I maybe should be calling 1 time here, but I perceived his range to be is really strong. Like, obviously he could have some ace kings in here that are just continuing, but I think a lot of the times it's queens plus. A ton of people aren't going to be re-raising and 3-betting from the under the gun +1 position. They'll just be putting in a call with ace jack, ace 10, ace queen type hands. So I just think that we're beat here, and I'm not going to be calling for a gutter to the 10 or a set. So I put in the fold here, and we're just going to go on to the next hand. I rebought for $100 here. I tried to top off my stack here. If I win a big pot, I want to have the maximum on the table. We look down at ace deuce of diamonds from the button. Pretty good hand here, and a couple limps over to me, so I'm going to raise it up to $14 here. The small blind puts in the call, the middle position limper calls, cutoff limper calls, and so we're going 4 ways to the flop here in position. Flop with $60 in it comes queen of spades, 4 of hearts, 6 of diamonds. So obviously we have nothing but some backdoor draws. Pretty bummer of a flop if I do say so myself. But it checks over to me here. Into 4 people here, I think a check is just fine, but given what I wrote down here, I ended up putting in the c-bet for $30 here, which I don't really like, but only the small blind puts in the call here, so we're just going heads up to the turn, which is decent if we're going to continue to fire. With 120 in the pot, the turn now comes the deuce of spades, so it gives us a pair here. Obviously, we're not going to get there with any of our backdoor draws because the diamonds and the straight draws do not come in on a deuce, but we do have a pair, which is decent, but we're pretty much behind like 99% of the time when we get a call from the small blind on the flop. He checks it over to me here, and I decide to check it back here. I'm not really going to be going for 3 streets of bluffing on this type of a board. So the river now comes as 6 of hearts, and he checks it over to me here again. So regardless of what I do here, I think that when he checks it on the turn and the river, I don't really think that he has that strong of a hand. I think he has a 1 pair type of hand, and I don't even think he has top pair in this situation here, which leads me to my decision here, which was to bet fairly big. I bet $70 into 120 here, which is a little bit over half the pot. It's not totally polarizing like I would do occasionally if I had like a set or a straight. But yeah, I bet 70 into 120, putting him on a pocket pair under the queen, and he ends up tank folding and shows pocket jacks. So yeah, we got that one through here, but if I had jacks in his situation, I'm definitely putting in the call there. Like, my story, looking back on the way I played this hand, my story does not make sense at all. I don't really think I have a queen here at all. I'd be betting the turn again and checking the river instead. I want to deny equity with a queen on the turn. I don't want to let people get there on the river and stuff like that. So I think what I'm trying to tell you right now is I don't think he played it correctly. I think that we should have gotten called there. We got away with a big bluff there, so happy about that. Don't score. It's not looking so good.
It's perfect.
With $320 now in our stack, we look down at king queen offsuit from the hijack. Got 1 limper to us, and I make it $14, and I just get called from the big blind. The limper ends up putting in the fold. So we're going heads up to the flop here, which comes ace of clubs, queen of clubs, 6 of diamonds. So obviously we have the pair of queens with the king kicker. We don't have top pair, so it's not totally strong. I think the big blind, we're going to be ahead of his range a lot of the time here. He's incentivized to call with a lot more of hands due to the fact that he has $3 of dead money in there. So I can't really give him that much credit for an ace or a king here, and if he does have one of those, it's probably going to be in the weaker variety given that he didn't 3-bet us pre-flop. Checks over to me here, and I check behind for deception. Yeah, we decided to check back here. Nothing wrong with that. I think we could be putting in a bet here, but as long as we get a street of value on the turn of the river, I think that's fine. We don't want a huge pot here with a second pair. Even though we do have a good kicker, there's still aces out there that will beat us. Swing heads up to the turn here, which comes the 4 of spades. He checks it back over to us here again here, and I think this is a great time to go for value. So I put in a $14 value bet, and he puts in the call here. I'm not really too scared about an ace now, given that he's checked the flop and the turn. So when the river comes the 9 of hearts, he checks it over to us again here, and I put in another value bet, really small, for $14 into 58 here. Just trying to get called by any queen, any other random pair like a 6 or a 4 or something like that. So yeah, I put in $14 here for value, and he puts in the fold, so we end up scooping that pot. Like right at the last minute. $320 in our stack again. We look down at ace queen from the big blind. We got the under the gun +1, who is a crazy action player. He just sat down a couple orbits prior to this hand, but he's been playing a ton of hands and playing them in a very aggressive manner. So the +1 raises it up to $10 now, and there's 3 callers to me. With a hand as strong as ace queen from the big blind, I'm going to be putting in a raise here all day, given the sporadic nature of the under the gun +1 crazy action player, and given that everybody else just put in the call, I think this is a great time to raise big here. So I raise it almost 6x and make it $59, and we only get a call from the crazy action player, which is actually preferable. So going out of position to the flop though, the only negative to this hand, So with $150 in the pot, the flop now comes Jack of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. I bet $80 here into 150, and he puts in the call here. The turn with $310 in it comes a Jack of spades, pairing the Jack on the flop. Makes this this bet on the turn here less likely, so I decided to check it over to him here, and now he shoves for $163 here. Given that he's a sporadic player, I think that we could maybe consider a call here, but given that we only have ace high here on a a paired jack board, he could have any pocket pair here and turning that into a bluff. He could do anything here that if we're calling and trying to win with ace high, we still get owned. So I put in the fold here, and he shows pocket sevens. So he was bluffing. Like, there's no way that that was for value. But we had ace high. So even if we call there and don't hit an ace or a queen, we end up losing. And he'd show over his sevens in a pretty sheepish way, and we'd end up mucking. So I think if we bet the turn, he probably would fold. But given that he's more of an action player, pocket sevens when the turn pairs the jack, I mean, I don't know. He could find a call there. He's not someone that's scared to put his money in. So I think our check fold there is fine on the turn. I'm going to go on to the next hand here.
1 point.
I'm good.
The $140 now in our stack. We look down at ace king of diamonds from the small blind. We got 4 limps to me, and I raise it up to $26 here. I think that's pretty sizable and fine raise at these stakes given the nettedness of our hand here. Middle position player puts in the call, who is the same crazy guy from the last hand. So we're liking this right now. We have a pretty strong hand here, so we want his money all day. Everyone else puts in the fold here, which is fine. $60 in the pot. The flop now comes 984. We check it over to him here, and he decides to check it back. So the turn now comes the king of clubs here, and obviously that makes us top pair with a top kicker. I think our flop check kind of announces what kind of a hand we have here. Obviously I do this, I'm a balanced player, so I'll be checking the flop with an overpair occasionally as well. I'm not just going to be betting overpairs there 100% of the time. So when I bet $40 here, he kind of sniffs out that we probably have a king type of hand here or a pocket pair. I obviously don't know what he has here, but he puts in the fold. So he made a good read there on that one, and but we pick up a $60 pot plus our 40, so $100 there. We're gonna take that, and we're gonna go on to the next hand.
Or just for pride, or oh really?
Yep, I'm a competitive guy.
Yeah.
With $200 now in our stack, we look down at queen jack offsuit from the button. We got a bunch of limps to me. I didn't even count how many limps there was because there was just so many limps. I raise it up to $20 here. The middle position player puts in the call, and the hijack puts in the call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes queen of hearts, 4 of clubs, 10 of hearts. So we flop top pair with a back drawer straight draw. Yeah, so pretty happy about this so far. Checks to me here, and with the $70 in the pot here, I'm going to be putting in a bet all day. Given that I raised pre-flop, I can rep the queen, I can rep ace king type of hands, I can rep a bunch of different things here. So I bet $44 here, and only the middle position player puts in the call. The middle position player and I have a lot of history together. I've played a bunch of sessions with her, and she likes to call me down a lot because I've shown a couple bluffs in previous vlogs. She called me with pocket nines on a board where I barreled 3 times into her. So yeah, she's not someone who is scared of the way that I play. So she puts in the call here for $44. So I'm giving her not very much credit here. She could think that I'm bluffing, etc. The turn comes a 4 of spades. She checks here again to me, and I'm going to be going all in here because she only has around $40 behind. She snap calls, which is to be expected. River comes to 8 of hearts, which is a pretty bad card because it brings in like jack 9, it brings in any heart draw. But I show my queen jack, and she just puts in the muck here, which kind of confirms what I was thinking earlier, which is that she likes to just play poker with me, and isn't someone who always necessarily, when she's calling, has a better hand than me. She's someone who is just playing the opponent rather than her cards. But we're going to take down that pot there, which is pretty nice. We're going to go on to the next hand.
It's portable.
With $320 now in our stack, we look down at ace-10 of diamonds from the middle position. The straddle is on in this hand, and there's one caller to me. With ace-10 of diamonds, I recommend either folding it or putting in a raise here. I don't really think that calling is that good of a play, so I raise it up to $30. The button calls and the big blind calls, so we're going 3 ways to the flop. $90 in the pot. The flop comes queen of diamonds, deuce of clubs, four of clubs. So we obviously have nothing going on immediately, but we have a backdoor diamond draw and a backdoor straight draw, along with an overcard with our ace. Checks to me here, and I think that a check back is fine here. Obviously we could be c-betting, but given there's two other players, I just don't really think that that's what I wanted to do in the moment, so I check it back. The turn now comes with three of diamonds here, so now that gives us a lot of chances on the river here. We obviously pick up the nut flush draw, and we also pick up a straight draw with our ace. The big blind now leads for $40, and she's the opponent from the last hand here who just likes to play the opponent a lot. So I think that she smelled weakness on the flop, and this bet could be like she has a made hand, or it could just be playing her cards and knowing that we probably don't have too much given the way that we played the flop. She bets $40 into both of us, and now given that I have ace high here, but I have a lot of cards that could help me on the river, I think that a raise here is appropriate. I think that obviously we could be calling a bunch of the time given the how much equity we have, but given that she's someone who likes to play cards here, I think that her bet isn't going to be strong 100% of the time here. And if she's not strong 100% of the time, a raise here would fold out a lot of her hands that she can't continue with. So if I raise big here, I think that's the right play if I am going to raise. So I raise her from 40 to 130. Also puts a lot of pressure on the big blind here, given that she bet 40. If I just put in the call, he's going to be incentivized to call a lot of the time, and maybe he could beat us even if a 10 or an ace comes. So I think a raise here is good. The button puts in the fold, and the big blind now goes into the tank here. So I think that we are going to be getting a fold here a lot of the time here. So she's in the tank, she's in the tank, she's in the tank. She looks at her cards, and then she goes all in. But she only has $160 here, and we raise it to $130, so we're going nowhere. We put in the extra $30 here. Obviously, we're not loving the situation, but given that we were semi-bluffing, we still have a lot of cards that can help us out here. The river with $410 in it comes the queen of clubs, so we brick everything. We're obviously not going to be good here, given that she went all in on the turn. We show our hand because we really want to see what she has. And she shows pocket nines here. Pocket nines. So just did not give us any credit whatsoever for the raise there on the turn. Looking back at the hand, I guess it doesn't really make that much sense why I checked the flop and then raised the turn. It's probably the most interesting hand of the session, so if you guys want to help me out with one of them, I'd appreciate you giving me your opinion on this hand. Does the way I played this hand makes any sense here? Obviously, she's calling me down light here, but is this a play I should be making here? I don't know. She read my soul there and ended up winning that pot, which she deserves, given the way she played that hand, so I'm not really too mad about it. I think I played the hand fine. If I would have bet the flop, and then if she led on the turn, I could have raised, and that would have made a little bit more sense. So, nice hand to you.
Okay.
We are decimated down to $84 here. I'm not going to rebuy. We're in the early middle position, and we look down at pocket queens. The straddle is on. There's one call. So I'm going to be raising this up all day here. With 84 in our stack, we could just be shoving, but I just bet $24 here over the straddle and one call. The middle position player, who is a loose guy, calls, and everybody else puts in the fold. So we're going heads up to the flop here, which comes king of diamonds, nine of diamonds, deuce of clubs. Obviously there's an overcard to our pair here, but given the size of our stack and the size of the pot, we're just going to be putting it in here. So I just shove it all in, and he snap calls pretty much a pot size bet here, so he's getting 3 to 1 on a call there. Turn with $178 in it comes the 8 of clubs. The river comes the king of clubs, which is actually a card that we like seeing, given that it takes another king out of his potential hands that he could have. We show our hand, and we're good. So we're going to scoop that pot there. A nice consolation for $160. We got into the game for $400 here, and given the way that our bluff went 2 hands ago, we got out of the game for $150. So we obviously lose $250 in this session. So thanks for tuning in to this video. Unfortunately, because I lost, I'm not going to be sending out any money to any of you guys. I can't be sending it out when I'm losing all the time. So yeah, hopefully the next episode I book a profit. You're going to want to stay tuned to that. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified as soon as I post, so you can be one of the first people to comment. As always, like the video, and I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Thanks for watching to the end of my video. Click my head below to subscribe and stay in the loop. See you next time.